What up, squad? Tonight we're going to capture the Andromeda galaxy. This month we celebrate our 1 year of deep space astrophotography. We return to our first deep sky object, M31, the Andromeda. The Andromeda galaxy is 2.5 million light years from Earth. I don't even know what that means. We started astrophotography with our reflector telescope. We began our journey just observing the solar system and then capturing it so that we could share our experience with family and friends. Capturing the moon, then jumping over to Jupiter and Saturn, Mars, Earth, the Milky Way core, and even capturing a SpaceX launch. Astrophotography is an exciting and inspiring hobby. If you're considering getting into this hobby, or you're a beginner, it can be anxiety-inducing and overwhelming. We've learned so much from the YouTube community as well as forums. So to celebrate our first Astro anniversary, we put together this walkthrough to show you what doing astrophotography looks like, as a way to give back and hopefully inspire you to mount a scope.
What did he just say? Mount a scope? That sounds weird.
Sorry, sometimes I hear my wife's voice in my head. Alright, enough of the funny business, let's get to business. In this walkthrough, we'll go over how you can plan to capture your target, setting up your Astro equipment, how and what kind of data you will need to collect, and processing that data. The late great Carl Sagan once said, "Astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience." The same can be said for astrophotography. This by no means is a full-fledged walkthrough. For that, I'll leave some links down in the description for those who helped us on this journey. It's for those who want to get into astrophotography and wish to learn what it takes to do this equal parts frustrating and exciting hobby. Ultimately, hoping it inspires you to grab a telescope and check out the night sky. Also, stick around till the end to see our best deep sky images of the year. Starting with planning rather than set up an equipment, as whether or not you have a telescope or binoculars or whatnot, it's good to get started getting familiar learning the night sky. I use Stellarium, which is a free software if you use it on a computer or laptop. It's very convenient. You just plug in your location. It will tell you what your night sky will look like. There's the Milky Way core, Saturn and Jupiter. As of this recording, it's October 2021, hence their visibility from my location. But for this video, our goal is to capture M31, the Andromeda galaxy. I also use Skyview, a free app you could download on your phone. It's an excellent app that you could use to find out what you could see from your own backyard or wherever you're at, to know when the object is visible and when it leaves visibility, say behind my roof or a tree. In order to do good astronomy, you need clear skies. Generally checking out the weather online first, and then I head over to a astronomy dedicated weather app such as Clear Outside. It will tell you when it's cloudy or clear, which hour of the night, as well as other important details like the lunar phase, sunrise, sunset, and more. It's best to set up when there's still light outside, you can see what you're doing. Just setting up the tripod for my go-to mount, which controls the movement of my telescope as it follows an object throughout the night sky. I'll leave information on the equipment I use in the description section below. You want to make sure all three legs of the tripod are leveled. Here in the northern hemisphere, the leg with the end should be facing north towards Polaris, North Star, which provides your mount its bearings. Some place their equipment on concrete. I use pavers. I use a Skywatcher HEQ5 Pro Go-To mount. Just tightening up the nuts and bolts here. Very important, make sure you have your counterweight on. Another way to just make sure the mount is now leveled, got it set to my latitude. Now it's time for the star of the show, my William Optics Redcat 51 telescope. On top of which is a ZWO mini guide scope, and to the right of that is the ASI Air Pro. More on what those two things are in a bit. These cylinder-shaped devices on the rear of the guide scope and telescope are dedicated astrophotography cameras. This is the guide camera that basically tracks a star right next to my object throughout the night, and this is the main imaging camera. But we first started out with our Nikon D7100 DSLR camera. We first began with software on our laptop, but this is the ZWO ASI Air Pro. All those pictures you collect from your telescope and camera has to be done somehow. The ASI Air is basically a mini computer with built-in software to locate objects in the sky, track those objects as they move in the sky, acquisition, set up your imaging sessions, and send all that data to a thumb drive or SD card, which are included. Time now to connect my wires, power supplies, dew heaters to prevent condensation buildup on the lenses of the telescope. I also keep my main camera filters in this tool case. I have a light pollution filter. This other filter here is used to capture other signals emitted in space, for example from a nebula. But for our purposes here, a light pollution filter is what's most necessary to capture a galaxy, especially from our highly light polluted Bortle Class 8 area. Connected up, good to go, just waiting for the sunset, the stars and darkness to take the skies. Now just gotta make sure the scope is balanced in the right ascension and declination axes. If it's not properly balanced, I won't get good tracking. The next step is to polar align my mount with Polaris, the North Star, or Pole Star. This is done here in the Northern Hemisphere so that my mount knows where it's at. I'm able to do this with a built-in reticle on the mount. Using an app called Polar Finder Pro, I'm able to find out where exactly Polaris should be aligned on my reticle. Hey, if you could do me a solid, subscribe to our channel and like the video. I run the ASI Air off an iPad. You could also download the app on a cell phone. I make sure my telescope information is all accurate, as well as my coordinates, making sure the ASI Air is reading all my hardware, the mount, telescope, and cameras. With all that confirmed, first task is to focus my telescope, so I get nice, clear, round stars and an image. The ASI Air has a feature which helps you focus, and the company that makes my telescope, William Optics, provides all their telescopes with a Vamonos mask. Turn that circle into these diffraction spikes and check out that data. You know that your telescope is now focused. Tie in the focuser, remove the Vamonos mask. Now it's time to find a star to calibrate our guiding. It's a good idea to find a bright enough star for your guide scope and camera to guide on. This does take about 4 or 5 minutes. I give some extra time for my guiding to settle, and you can see that these red and blue lines are more or less leveled. I stop guiding, I return the telescope to the home position, then select my target, M31, the Andromeda galaxy. Since the mount is calibrated with polar alignment, it knows where it is in the night sky. It takes me roughly to that position in the night sky, and then it utilizes a very awesome, useful tool called plate solving. Something that is extremely useful on a go-to mount utilizing software. It's a tool that you'll definitely need to use when starting astrophotography and continuing the journey. And here we go. There's a test image of Andromeda. Looks like a tiny smudge in the center of the screen. Next, we go back to our guiding to select a star so we could track this area throughout the night sky. Finally, I set up my sequence of taking 23-minute or 180-second sub-exposures at a time. Astrophotography is not just one image that you take, it is several images that you take and then you overlap them on top of each other, or stack them as they say. More on that when we get to processing. Usually people take 1 hour to 3-5 hours. I've even seen multiple dozens of hours taken of exposure time to put together a beautiful image. For Andromeda, I've decided to do 3-minute, 180-second exposures. Halfway there. Good, decent guiding. There's our first test image of Andromeda. Look at that core. Now it's time to sit back and let the ASI Air Pro and the mount do its thing. Now that I'm done taking the primary image of my deep sky object, also known as light frames, I have to do calibration frames. These are a set of exposures, camera shots for getting rid of dust and other imperfections on the lens, vignetting, and reducing camera noise, which isn't sound, but the graininess that you see in images. Next, I have to cool down the camera to prevent thermal damage to the sensor, then shutting down the ASI Air. So the night of my imaging, I only did dark frames. There are various ways to shoot flat frames. I won't get into that here, but this time I decided to take my flat and dark flat frames during the day. Now that I've collected all my data, I have about 5 hours of images, about 96 images that are about 180 seconds or 3 minutes long. Any longer in my highly light polluted area would have just given me too much light pollution in my image. So what we do first is we take all those images and basically layer them on top of each other. We superimpose them on top of each other. That process is called stacking, and I do that through a program called Deep Sky Stacker. I take all the light frames, the actual images, and all the calibration frames and stack them all together. For some reason you can't really see the pop-ups where I'm opening up the folder where I keep my light frames, dark frames, flat frames, dark flat frames together. It's good to keep everything organized. I made sure that all my light frames didn't have any unusual objects such as satellites or airplanes going through them. So what I do is I just kind of, quote unquote, as they say, blink through the images, take a look, and just select the images that don't have any interference in them. Again, the pop-up windows don't show on my video recorder for some reason, but basically I just select the 97% of best images. I have some standard settings. Again, you can learn a lot more from people who do a deep dive into how to use Deep Sky Stacker. Depending on how many images that you have and the size of those images, it could take some time. For me, on average, it takes about 10 minutes or so to stack everything together to produce a single stacked image. And there it is, folks. The single stacked image doesn't look like much there. I know you were expecting a lot more and detail, but that's where we bring it into our editing software, and I use Photoshop. So here we are in Photoshop. Now this is where the magic happens to really bring out the lights and colors. And yes, astrophotography is a lot of editing. That may seem weird to those who just see these amazing, beautiful pictures. But this is the process, and to our defense, this is what NASA with the Hubble telescope, this is basically what they do as well. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, my screen recorder doesn't allow you to see the pop-ups or the tabs that I'm clicking. For those of you who may or may not be familiar with Photoshop, I first converted to a 16-bit image, then set the black and white threshold points. Next, I do a series of stretches utilizing levels and curves adjustments. I do some color balance as well as use the amazing camera raw filter. And that's basically it. Again, this is just a quick walkthrough. If you are interested in learning more on how to edit your photos, please leave a comment below and I'd be glad to upload a video where I show my workflow when it comes to editing astrophotography images. I'll also leave some links below to those who helped me out where I learned to edit. Is it overwhelming and is there a steep learning curve? Absolutely. But that's why I put together this quick walkthrough to perhaps inspire you to get rid of some of that anxiety when it comes to getting that telescope, knowing that you could do it. All it starts with is the desire and will to see the night sky. Well, enough of my yapping for now. To celebrate our 1-year Astro anniversary, here's a montage of our Astro photos to date. Hope you enjoyed that montage. Here are some final thoughts. With regards to acquisition, the most recent capture of M31, the Andromeda galaxy, but it took a span of about 2 months. Obviously, life gets in the way. Not every night is ideal for astrophotography, whether it be cloudy nights or a moon-filled light, and the moon acts like a spotlight, basically a huge flashlight that's going to be too bright to capture deep sky objects. Well, the equipment that we are using is at the most affordable range, breaking down some of the prices. To do this most efficiently and practically, if you're looking to get into deep sky astrophotography, I highly recommend starting with a small refractor like this, like the Red Cat 51 or something similar, because it is a wide field lens. I mean, you just capture so much. It's not designed for planetary astrophotography. Planetary astrophotography is kind of a beast of its own. Little bit simpler, but the techniques vary. So if you're looking to do planetary astrophotography, let us know in the comments below and we could kind of teach you how to do that with your cell phone. But if you're new to astronomy, we highly recommend that you start with observation, whether it is with a telescope, a visual telescope like you see, such as the Astronomy Without Borders One Sky telescope, or even starting off with a pair of binoculars like this to become more familiar with the night sky. I've been able to see the Orion Nebula, the Pleiades, beautiful views of the moon, and decent view of the planets with just these binoculars. When we began astrophotography, we knew very little about astronomy or photography, just the will to learn something new and a desire to capture the night sky. If you are an astrophotographer watching this video, if I misspoke or forgot to mention something important in this quick walkthrough, please let us know down in the comments. As you can see throughout this walkthrough, we don't have the ideal conditions, being not too far from New York City, living in a suburb, but we made the best out of it, and if we could do it, so can you. Questions, don't hesitate to comment below. Get out there, look up at the stars, and clear skies. But before you go, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at Vamonos Squad.